All right. So why? Actually, why Great Britain? Okay. Why Great Britain in the Industrial Revolution? All right. So the acronym I came up with is called Captains. I've used other acronyms before. Okay. Okay. So remember, in history, we always talk about geography first, right? Geography is the common denominator of everything, right? So if you want to talk about, you always start with geography whenever you start talking about history or why something happens. Okay? So let's take a look at the geography of Great Britain or the United Kingdom. Okay? Those terms are used interchangeably. Okay? In a textbook, when you hear the word England, that's what they're talking about. I mean, England is one country within Great Britain. Okay? You have Wales, you have Scotland, you have Northern Ireland. All of this constitutes Great Britain. Okay? So, captains. Okay? A couple of words you can use with a C. Associate with. Okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have center. Center of what? Okay? If you look on a map, okay, or if you look on a flat map, so to speak, okay, it's centrally located, right? Between the Americas. Just imagine the Americas are over here, right? This is the Americas, right? You have North America, South America. Let's just make believe, okay? Remember we talked about the triangle trade last week, okay? You have access to the Mediterranean. You have access to Asia, okay? So on a flat map, it's centrally located. You have the beginning of cities, people moving into cities or urbanization. I apologize for the spell. And you also have a large amount of coal. Now, why is coal important? Because coal was being transferred into steam, which was the new type of energy source. Okay? So when you talk about steam engine, right? James Watt, you talk about the steamship, you talk about the steamboat, you talk about the railroad, okay? This was the new energy source in the late 1700s, early 1800s, okay? All right, what does the A stand for? The A stands for, I know this is a stretch, but everything was accessible, meaning you can get access to it. Okay. All right. Accessible to trade routes, like the triangle trade. Accessible because of railroads, movement of people, movement of goods. Accessible to markets. Okay, because remember, what economic theory is driving industrial revolution? Capitalism. Remember we talked about that last week, how it was being changed from mercantilism to capitalism, okay? All right. P, population increase. People were living longer, they were having more kids in the family were working, okay? So the population went up. And where do people go to get jobs? They went to the cities, right? Very similar to today, all right? It's not an accident that, when immigrants come into the country, or people move, where do they normally move? They move to urban areas. Why do they do that? Because there's access, hopefully access to jobs and opportunity, okay? The same thing happened in the 1800s. Farmers were actually kicked off of their land for a series of reasons. And where did a lot of people migrate to? They migrated to the cities. Where were these cities located? They were located on the coastal regions. Okay? Right? T, trade, right? And technology. New technologies were being introduced, okay? Especially in the textile fields, all right? We talked about cotton last week, right? The spinning jenny, the factory system, interchangeable parts, we talked about that. Where you saw that definitely is in the weapons that came about, and in the machinery, in the factories. What does interchangeable parts mean? Like if something breaks, there was a replacement part for it that was sort of it was standard. Like if something broke on a gun, if a part broke on a gun, there were standard parts to the gun that could be interchanged quickly to make it work again. Same thing with machines, okay? So if you went to a cobbler is a person back in the day, right? You know, with Snow White and stuff, they made shoes, right? You know, back in the olden days, right? You had to get a pair of Jordans made, right? It might have taken 3 weeks for a person to sit down and make a shoe, or for a gunsmith to make a gun. With the factory system and the Industrial Revolution, those items could be made more efficient, quickly, with interchangeable parts, so more could be produced. It's called mass production, right? That's why when you have something made for you, it's usually more expensive, all right? Okay. We're going to keep A as accessible, frankly, because I couldn't think of another A. But remember, it's really important. Accessible, if something is accessible, that's because of its geography. Okay? If the factories were in mountains, it would be harder to get to those products, right? It would be harder to ship those products. And the last one, N, is natural harbors. Okay? So what I mean by that is, just like the coastline of the eastern coastline of the United States, like New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, the Chesapeake Bay, those are natural harbors. They have deep harbors. Why is that important? Because if you have natural harbors, you can dock boats more easily, and you can trade easier. Okay? So these cities had deep harbors or deep natural harbors which helped trade. All right. So this is just an acronym I thought of to help you remember why Great Britain, right? It was a center, right? And like on a map, it was centrally located. You have the urbanization happening, cities. You have the access to coal, right? Because of its location, it was accessible to trade routes, accessible to natural resources. You had a population increase. Where these people are going? They were going to the cities to find jobs. Okay, you had trade, global trade going on. You had new technologies. You had interchangeable parts. You had natural harbors, and then you had the invention of steam power. Okay, so if you remember this acronym, CAPTAINS, this might help you understand why it happened, why the Industrial Revolution happened in Great Britain. Okay. And again, looking back on the history, you know Great Britain moving forward in the 1800s, even though they lost to the colonists in the American Revolution, okay, you guys know this, Great Britain went on to become one of the largest empires in the world, and then they began to practice what? Imperialism. They began to set up colonies all around the world. And then in the 20th century, or this past century, countries were in the process, like India, okay, like a lot of countries in Africa, okay, they were in the process of becoming independent and getting rid of this imperial rule, okay? But for a long time, the British Empire had control of a lot of the world. There's a saying, right? You guys probably have heard of it. The sun never sets on the British Empire, meaning that wherever you were in the world, there was a colony, a territory of the British Empire. Okay, so it's really important to understand that moving forward. All right, guys. I hope that was. Let's see.